bringing it back a bit, developer platform, and then you go user friendly. Why did you guys end up choosing Hyperliquid? What was the decision? I mean, it's worked out obviously now, but back then when you first decided, what was the main reason behind it?
I definitely want to get Ollie's opinion on this as well, but I think a large part of it comes in from just like cross the team personal conviction in Hyperliquid kind of forming over a period of time. I remember like there was a point where like Ollie said the words like there's I think it's just reached escape velocity. And I remember like on TGE day, I just like repeated that to myself like 20 times and just, but this was still kind of like before we had really thought deeply about what we could build that was interesting here. I think at this time I'd like looked a little bit into precompiles, had thought a small amount about how like some of our like LVR solution AMMs could be using native precompiles to be able to keep themselves priced correctly, or like the read precompiles. There'd been like a little bit of design work in this manner, but I think like the conviction, at least that I had, that pushed us to like actually fully develop a product on it was actually around hype itself. I would say that like we started to form the thesis of like we should be building like we should really be building dexes. The power of like customized liquidity solutions is for assets themselves. We should be building very asset specific. And there was like a kind of a thesis. I mean, like hype is probably the most interesting asset we've seen generated in crypto in a really, really long time. And on top of that, hype staking, I think, is like an entire like world that will be explored over the next like several years. Like it's not just tokenizing staking yield; it's like the second order effects of everything that you can do with staking hype is being tokenized by LSTs. And for that reason, we knew that there was like a huge amount of growth opportunity for how much hype could be liquid staked. And there's going to be need for people to take leverage on that. And there's going to be need for people to unwind that leverage, which really that's kind of like how I view Stacks as lending to be able to allow people to have low borrow rates and then being able to like process swaps at very cheap rates for people to be able to like unwind. So we saw this as like being a pretty heavy service to the growth of liquid staking tokens. We thought liquid staking tokens around hype were the most interesting thing that like going on in the industry. And then lastly, I guess I would add that like there's also a like capital attraction like problem to this as well. Hype is like really it has a very large holder base that does not want to sell its bags and it wants to earn more and it doesn't want price exposure to other things. So like building like a hype USDC pool, like nobody wants to take any other risk and they want to be completely hype denominated. So if we could build something where we could just tell people like besides general smart contract risk, like there is no impermanent loss. You cannot lose or go down in hype terms. It becomes like I think just kind of like a perfect storm.
Yeah, it's kind of like I agree on the well. I mean, we've seen that people aren't that interested in buying and selling other assets on the Hyperliquid chain. It's kind of like Bitcoin holders where they don't really want to get rid of their Bitcoin; they just want to like stack more. Um, Ali, what is your hindsight reason?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like there's a couple people on our team who are like very opinionated about like chains and products and like what is valuable, what is worth spending time on and what's not. And prior to like making the decision to go on Hyperliquid, it kind of felt like those people were already like converging on that for their own reasons of like a similar flavor. So like my answer is different to Davin's, but like along the same lines. I had known about Hyperliquid since they like launched. I was like pretty deep in the perp deck space, but I didn't really recognize it as like special until probably like a year ago. Um, and that was because like I'm just not a sophisticated trader. Like I can't understand the nuances. Like I can't really understand the nuances of what makes a perp dex more attractive to an institution or a market maker versus another. Over time, like it's easier to get to that conclusion, but like it wasn't something I arrived at just by like using Hyperliquid myself. Uh, I do remember like it was kind of just a gradual build up leading into like TGE, and then before even I think this must have been like a month before TGE. There was a HyperCo event at DevCon in Bangkok, and I went there, and my like main takeaway from that was like there are like degenerates like left curves developers, and then like institutions, validators, infrastructure that are like all kind of converging on this one thing before we even had like a hype token. Like there was like obviously there were the moon mats out there, but I think most people didn't realize what the scale of it would be.
Yeah.
And yet like all of this was still happening. And there wasn't like a single Hyperliquid team member there, you know? These people were in no way being like coerced or paid or entering some sort of deals to do so. They kind of just all came, like the entire IQ curve came to like the same conclusion for their own reasons. Uh, and I was just like, I have not seen that happen in like a really, really long time. Like you could maybe make the comparison of like Solana post FTX, but even that like didn't feel as cohesive and as like, you know, the signs were there type of deal.